Welcome to Proven and Probable, where we deliver mining insights and bullion sales in the form of physical delivery, offshore depositories, and private blockchain distributed ledger technology.
Welcome to Proven and Probable. I'm your host, Maurice Jackson. Joining us for a conversation is Chris Taylor, the President, Director, and CEO of Great Bear Resources. Mr. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Nice to speak with you, Maurice.
Glad to have you on the program, sir, to share the value proposition before us in Great Bear Resources. Before we delve into project specifics, Mr. Taylor, please introduce us to Great Bear Resources and what is the opportunity you present to the market?
Great Bear is a Canadian-focused high-grade gold explorer. Our project, the Dixie property, is located in the Red Lake district of Ontario, which is quite famous for being probably the premier high-grade gold district in the country.
You know, speaking of opportunity, I think you're being quite modest here. Great Bear has rewarded shareholders in the last 52 weeks with a 400% return. Congratulations. The company's been able to answer a series of questions with a very impressive results, and they are all responding with yes. Let's find out why the stock price is soaring. Great Bear Resources is focused on a new high-grade gold discovery in Red Lake, Ontario. Take us there and provide us with some historical context on the region.
I'm happy to do that. Red Lake is known for producing a large number of high-grade gold ounces. It's quite road accessible. You can connect in through the remainder of Ontario and down into the U.S. Just below that. There's about 30 million ounces of gold produced in the district to date. The majority of that is from Newmont Goldcorp's main Red Lake gold mine. What we have in our project is effectively a large high-grade gold discovery, multiple gold zones that we've found, and it's located just off the side of a highway, about a mile or two off the side of a highway, with a power line that runs over the project, and therefore we have low exploration costs. So this is what the Red Lake District is known for. This is an area where investors and the dollars that they provide to the company turn into meters of drill core drilled with very cost-effective structures.
There are some strategic advantages Great Bear Resources has over its peers that are exploring for gold with regards to brownfields exploration. Please share some of the virtues from an exploration and capital standpoint.
In this area, one of the main advantages is low-cost exploration, and this is because, effectively, rather than looking for minerals on the top of a mountain or up in the Arctic Circle or in the heart of Africa or something like that, you're in a civilized jurisdiction that's politically stable. This means that you end up with lower drill costs, lower operational costs. There's assay labs that are in town. We're about a 20-minute drive, our project, from downtown Red Lake, which has a full-service community, a skilled population of workers, and obviously a very extensive history of mining. So effectively, this is cost-effective exploration where investment dollars turn into meters, and that turns into performance in the share price as long as you continue to be successful, and Great Bear certainly has been up to this point.
All right, we've covered the region. Mr. Taylor, please introduce us to your flagship Dixie Gold Project and share some of the project highlights.
The Dixie Gold property is located about a 20-minute drive from downtown Red Lake. So that means it's also about a 20-minute drive from one of the largest gold mines in the area. And the property is located in greenstone-type rocks. These are Archean age greenstones that are mesothermal gold hosts. Tip to tip on this large LP fault structure, which is where we've made three of our most recent gold discoveries, that's about 22 kilometers long end to end. And the fault itself, the main area of it that we think is the most prospective, is about 18 to 20 kilometers long. We've only drilled at this point about 15% of that structure, but every drill hole that we've put into the fault itself and the immediately adjacent area has gold mineralization. So this is truly what could be characterized as a brand new district scale gold discovery. So what Great Bear is working on is a big greenstone hosted high grade gold system, and quite exciting with the discoveries that we've been making is that a lot of the gold that we're drilling goes right to the surface, and that's quite exceptional in Red Lake, because Red Lake, other than being famous for high-grade gold, it's famous for mines that go down a mile and a half deep vertically from surface. And on our project, excellent gold results have been generated really right to the surface bedrock interface. It's quite exciting.
It certainly is. And to really appreciate the opportunity before us, please share some of the similarities between Newmont Goldcorp's Red Lake Gold Mine and the Dixie Gold Project.
Well, and Newmont Gold Corp is working on a high-grade quartz vein. Gold is hosted in high-grade quartz veins that extend down to, I'll use Canadian terminology here, down to about 2.5 kilometers or more in depth. And that's very, very similar to the first gold zones that we found on our Dixie property, the Dixie Limb and the Hinge zones. These were exciting discoveries that we had over a year ago now. And that's very similar geometrically and in terms of the types of mineralization and the gold grade distributions, the size, when you look at it from a surface map perspective, very much like what we found early on. So that's what the Red Lake Gold Mine is famous for, is this high-grade gold in quartz mining. And that's similar to two of our zones and very dissimilar from a bunch of the other major zones that we found recently on our property.
The Dixie Gold Project hosts 5 zones. What has Great Bear Resources most excited here?
Well, we were very excited up to the last sort of 6-month period with the types of consistent and repeatable high-grade gold numbers that we were generating from the Hinge Zone discovery and the Dixie Limb discovery. And this was very, very similar in terms of the gold grades and other patterns of mineralization and rock type to what you see at the main mines in the district. So this had the company very excited. However, just over the last number of months, which has been the fuel for a very strong response in our share performance as well, is this very, very large fault structure. The LP fault structure down the project hosts an entirely different type of disseminated high-grade gold mineralization. And those are two words, disseminated and high-grade, that you don't often hear in the same sentence. And to make that more exciting from our point of view is that gold mineralization extends, again, right to the near surface. So this is a new type of gold mineralization in the Red Lake District, and that's what makes this so compelling as an exploration story, is that we're really just beginning the discovery process along this big new target.
The company has been issuing a series of very impressive drill results. Please share some of the results and what this means going forward for the company.
Well, quite recently, one of the new zones that we've discovered, called the Oro Zone on the LP fault, this generated a very near-surface intercept of about 42 meters of about 5.28 grams per ton gold. Now, that's exceptional in the sense that that's a high-grade gold intercept in and of itself, but the fact that that's sitting right in the near surface is very interesting. And within that zone, there was about 1.5 meters of about 100 grams per ton gold. So that's over 3 ounces per ton gold. And what we're seeing as we drill along that fault is other very high gold grades, including at the Bear Ramini discovery. We had right near surface, we had a zone that was about 2 meters of just about 200 grams per ton gold. And then below that, there was about a 14-meter zone of about 12 grams per ton below that. And then just beside that, there was another zone, which was about 50 meters of about 3/4 of a gram per ton, showing us that we have these large intervals of bulk tonnage type gold mineralization adjacent and flanking and surrounding the high-grade zones that we've been finding. Before that, within the Dixie Limb and the Hinge zones, these are the high-grade Red Lake-style gold veins, which they're located about 1 kilometer to the west of the zones that I was just describing. We had some intervals there. Very typically, you'd end up with a couple meters of in sort of the ounce per ton range, so somewhere in the 20 to 40 gram per ton range. That's very typical for some of the intercepts that we've seen. But once in a while, you get true bonanza-grade gold intercepts. Like I remember releasing a result. It was about 1 meter of about 900 grams per ton gold at the beginning of 2019. And I think that included, it was something like about 0.6 meters of about 1,600 grams per ton gold. So just phenomenally high-grade gold, which is what the district is associated with. And those results were also a driver for value appreciation in Great Bear. So you get a spectrum of high-grade gold numbers ranging from several grams per ton up to several ounces per ton on this project.
Take us to the Hinge Zone, which has been quite active the last year, and walk us through a cross-section comparison between the Dixie and the Red Lake Gold Mine.
These are effectively very similar types of deposits, the Hinge Zone and the Red Lake Gold Mine. It's similar types of alteration around the gold veins, this red-brown hydrothermal biotite alteration. At the main gold mine, what you're looking for in this district, typically to make grade at most of the deposits, is about 2 meters of about 10 grams per ton gold. And the reason being, the 10 gram per ton gold number tends to be economic in this area, that you can extract it and pay and make money at those levels. And then the 2 meter width is about what the mining equipment width is. So that's about a sort of a minimum width that would flank the vein, and that's what you'd be aiming for. So what you'd be looking for is effectively these veins that range from 30 centimeters wide to a couple meters wide. And they'll mine these things in the district all the way down to many kilometers depth. And that's what Goldcorp and now Newmont Goldcorp have been doing for many years. That's very similar to what we're seeing within the Hinge Zone, except the Hinge Zone has been surprising us repeatedly with multiple gold veins in many of the drill holes. So we're getting these intervals of wide zones of gold-bearing quartz veins, sometimes up to over 100 meters in drill core, where you see repeated gold veins of anywhere from 30 centimeters to several meters in width. And I believe the widest veins that we've seen, that we've issued results on, is about 7 meters of about an ounce per ton gold. And those are incredibly robustly developed gold-bearing vein systems, definitely on par with some of the best in the district.
Moving on to the Bear-Rimini Zone, what would you like to share with us? Because there's some impressive stuff going on there as well.
Yeah, the Bear-Rimini Zone. These are some of the numbers I was quoting recently. A couple meters of a couple hundred grams, 14 meters of 12 grams. This is a zone of wide disseminated gold mineralization that's within a felsic volcanic unit that we see over many kilometers where we've drilled it so far. And that's entirely new for the Red Lake District. Most of the gold in the area is hosted by these gold-bearing veins, but they tend to be within what we call mafic and ultramafic volcanic rocks. And those are effectively, if you look at them with your naked eye, these are dark-colored rocks, dark green rocks, typical greenstone belt rocks. The rocks that we're drilling in the Bear-Rimini Zone are quite light in color. They're very different chemically. They have a very different origin, and they occur in big, thick units of these sort of felsic volcanic packages with other units intruded into them. And that's where we're seeing these new gold discoveries. So the Bear-Rimini Zone is something that has not before been seen in the Red Lake District, to the best of my knowledge, and it has the potential for many kilometers of strike length. Certainly, we've already drilled it over about 3.2 kilometers, and so far it's wide open to extension.
Finally, and equally important, take us to the Yuma Zone. Why are shareholders enthusiastic about this zone?
The Yuma Zone is effectively a 1.5 kilometer step out along the same structure from the Bear-Rimini Zone, and it contains, we put out results very recently, that it contains multiple zones of high-grade gold mineralization, and those are flanked by wide intervals of this sort of low-grade gold mineralization that you see globally in many kinds of open pit deposits. And the Yuma Zone is very similar to the new zone that we've recently announced, which is another kilometer step out along that fault, which is the Oro Zone. So collectively, the Bear-Rimini, Yuma Zones, and Oro Zones all have the same geology that's been intersected in drilling, and they all contain a combination of high-grade gold, and that's flanked by these wide zones of low-grade mineralization that projects right to surface. So the market and our geologists, everybody involved in the Great Bear story, is very excited by these because it's very rare to see this combination of high grades surrounded by the bulk tonnage mineralization, and especially to see it along drill centers that are spaced kilometers apart, and to see that consistency of geology and gold mineralization. So that's what's exciting here, is the scale of these discoveries is really something that you don't see very often.
Let's discuss some important topics germane to the project. Beginning with reversionary interests, are there any on the projects?
No, actually, this is another fairly unique characteristic of Great Bear and its properties, is that the properties are 100% owned by the company, and on top of that, there are no royalties of any kind owed to other parties on these projects. So all the benefit of these discoveries flows to our shareholders.
Yeah, without even having an NSR, that is quite impressive. That's something you don't run into quite often. We're going to get into some numbers later in this discussion, but from a capital expenditure standpoint, what is your largest expense and at what cost?
We're spending right now about $1 million a month on drilling and exploration work. And if you look at the money that Great Bear has raised, about 80 cents on every dollar goes to drilling and exploration work. So the remaining costs, probably about 10 cents of that would be salaries and other things. We obviously have to keep the company moving. And of course, like every other company in our type of space, we do marketing and promotion and these sort of outreach. So that's probably another 10 cents on the dollar. But the vast majority of the money that we raise turns right into meters of gold bearing core drilled out of the ground. So it's been very cost effective that way because of the infrastructure access on the property.
What is your relationship with the Indigenous people?
We have an excellent relationship with both the Wabauskang and Lac Seul First Nations, which are the local Indigenous groups. And we've been fortunate. We recently sponsored a student work program for this summer. And we also we have ongoing business relationships with some of the community members who are providing, for instance, drill core boxes for the program. That's a very tall order because we drill a lot of core, and we look forward to more of this cooperation while we go forward. These are communities in this area that are very familiar with mining, and many of the community members are active in the mining industry and also in forestry and other sort of natural resource work.
Are you fully permitted?
Yes, the work that we're doing now is fully permitted, so there have been no issues regarding permitting or execution of the work that we need to carry out.
Is the ultimate goal for Great Bear Resources to develop the Dixie Gold Project and sell it, or build a mine?
Ultimately, this is a question I get asked a lot because a company needs to be prepared to put the project forward through all the exploration stages and through into production. What you need to always think about in the back of your mind, though, is that very few junior companies in our shoes that make this scale of discovery make it through that production process on their own. Typically, at some point, there are a number of major producing gold companies in the world, and they are looking for these types of assets. Their reserves are always being depleted, and the combinations of high-grade gold, near-surface gold, and access to infrastructure that we have certainly put the Dixie property at the front of the pack when it comes to comparable gold projects that these guys are looking at.
We've discussed the good. Let's address the bad. What can go wrong, and what is your action plan to mitigate that wrong?
One of the biggest errors that a company can make is effectively, in our situation, when you're on to a district scale type discovery, one of the things that can go wrong is that the company will prematurely focus on resource development and definition on one particular zone to the detriment of wider exploration and making the discoveries that will ultimately add the most value for a company. So we're very cognizant of that. We try not to get led by the market into drilling hundreds and hundreds of holes onto any particular zone and trying to define it too early. That's one of the concerns that companies are often forced into just because they have difficulty accessing capital. We've been very successful raising funds and employing those funds on our own terms, and that's led to the sequence of discoveries that we continue to make. Other risks that we would have would be very much like other companies in our space. Well, maybe there's something geologically that constrains the amount of gold mineralization. That's typical risk. There are no special risks for our project. It's in a fully permitted operating mining district, and it's one of these areas where you don't get the political risks or other risks that you see in other jurisdictions. So it's generally a safer area and a stable area to work in.
Switching gears, let's discuss the people responsible for increasing shareholder value. Mr. Taylor, please introduce us to your board of directors.
Well, some of the key members of the board of directors are my partner in business within Great Bear, Mr. Bob Singh. He's a professional geologist, and he was responsible through contacts of his in the Red Lake District for originating the Dixie property as a business opportunity for the company. So Bob is a member of the board, and he's been instrumental in this success to date. Two of the famous, relatively famous in our industry advisors that we have, these are strategic advisors to the company, are Mr. John Robbins and Mr. Jim Paterson. These guys were responsible and involved with the Kaminak gold discovery in the Yukon a few years back and its subsequent sale to Goldcorp for about $500 million. So many of them will know them from those activities and other companies they've been involved with. Other board members include Dr. David Terry, and we have Mr. Doug Ramshaw and Mr. Tony Ricci. These are all independent directors of the company, all experienced industry veterans, and they've been down the road on many discoveries over the years. And Mr. Rob Scott is our CFO. So you have Rob Scott with experience on the financial side. You have an experienced independent group of directors. And recently we've added somebody who's quite experienced in the marketing space as a VP of Corporate Communications. And her name is Rita Bennett. So collectively, we've put a very effective team of people together within Great Bear. And I think we're getting the message out and definitely delivering on our promises to shareholders.
Who is Chris Taylor, and what makes him qualified for the task at hand?
These questions are always probably the worst to answer for somebody like myself. I don't like talking about myself that much. I'm an exploration geologist by background, but I have an academic background. I have a master's degree in structural geology. At various times in my life, I've crawled all over various mountain ranges here, there, and everywhere, including the Himalayas, the Andes, the various stuff up in Alaska, all over the United States and Canada. My background, I used to be the Vice President Exploration with Great Bear Resources almost 10 years ago now. And during the decline in the mining cycle, I ended up taking control of the company, being offered that by the board at the time. I restructured the board of directors, found financing for the company. Often, when financing was difficult to acquire, I would keep it going, using my own bank account. And what we did was find that compelling mix of traits in a project, in this case, the Dixie property, that had the opportunity to really build value for shareholders. So I've been focused on that for years now. It's been about 9 years with Great Bear, and I've gone through every effort to make sure that our shareholders have the best shot at success with a project like this, and Dixie has certainly not failed to deliver.
It certainly hasn't. Who is on your management team, and what skill sets do they bring to Great Bear Resources?
Well, Great Bear runs a very tight ship in this sense. So we have a small number of executives. There's myself as the president and CEO, Bob Singh as VP Exploration. We're both on the board of the company. Rob Scott, I mentioned before, our CFO. We also have Rita, who I mentioned as VP Corporate Communications. And we deal with a very qualified group of consulting geologists who they're based in Red Lake, and they've lived there for many years, and used to work for Goldcorp and other companies in the area. That's called Ramini Exploration. So the Ramini people are ex-Goldcorp people and are helping us run the project on a day-to-day level. So effectively, despite our success, we're being successful with a minimum amount of staffing and extra cost, and we're trying to put as much of the money as we raise as we can into the ground. So it's a lean, mean, hopefully very qualified team, and I think the proof's always in the pudding with these things. If we keep generating value for shareholders, we don't want to end up with a bloated corporate structure that eats up dollars that could otherwise be put into the ground.
Into some numbers. Please share the capital structure for Great Bear Resources.
Great Bear is a very tightly structured company, despite the fact that we've been actively exploring for a few years now. So we have about 42 million shares issued and outstanding on a fully diluted basis, including remaining warrants. There aren't very many left, and options. We're just over 50 million shares issued and outstanding. So the capital structure is very tight in this company compared to most of our peer groups in the industry.
How much cash and cash equivalents do you have?
In Canadian dollars, we have about $18.5 million of cash in the till right now, and there are several million, $7 to $8 million of additional funding available through in-the-money warrants and options. So all told, we're looking at over $25 million in cash and cash equivalents at the moment, which is sufficient for us to drill nonstop at this rate without the requirement to finance again, all the way through past the end of 2020.
That's correct, because I think you referenced your burn rate was about $1 million per month. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's 3 rigs drilling all the time on the project, 12 months a year.
How much debt do you have?
We don't have any debt at all.
This is quite impressive, sir. Who are the major shareholders, and what is their level of commitment?
The largest individual shareholder in the company is Mr. Rob McEwen. He was in charge of Goldcorp at the time of their high grade zone discovery, about a decade and a half ago in Red Lake. And I remember when we put out one of the zones that we discovered, the Hinge Zone, we put out news, and within an hour of that news hitting the news wires, I was on the phone with Mr. McEwen, and he became our largest shareholder at that time. I remember exactly what he said. He said, "Chris, I've seen this story play out before. I know how it ends, and I want to be your premier shareholder in Great Bear." So he's the largest individual that we have involved. We have another shareholder of note named Mr. Rob Cudney. He owns a few percent of the company individually. He was involved with a company called Gold Eagle Mines, which also had a major discovery in Red Lake. They sold that deposit to Goldcorp before they'd even drilled off a resource for about $1.5 billion. And he likewise was very interested in becoming a shareholder of the company. Moving along, management, those of us in management, collectively with us and our families, we have about 15% of the outstanding shareholdings of the company. So I think Mr. McEwen has about 14%, Mr. Cudney has a few percent, management has about 15%. We have institutional ownership, which is increasing on a regular basis. That would likely be up to the 25 to 30% range at this point, and the remainder of the float is owned by retail. So at this point, we have not committed ourselves to any particular large mining company or other large investment institution that would have a say in how we're operating. So we operate completely independently, and that gives us the ability to make these discoveries without having external mandates applied to us. So far, that's been a very successful formula for us.
Are there any redundant assets on the books that we should know about?
No, there's nothing of note.
All right. Are there any change of control fees? And if yes, what is the compensation?
Change of control fees within Great Bear are only, there's only, I believe, 3 of us that would have a change of control provision. And these would be to the tune of probably collectively between the number of people that are involved on the order of a couple $1 million in the event that occurs. So these are very insignificant costs relative to the scale of the project and the value of the company.
Is management charging a consultant fee for any services?
No, management in this case are all salaried, so effectively it's a standard salary commensurate with our level of experience in the industry, and it would be according to standard industry parameters.
In closing, multi-layered question here. What is the next unanswered question for Great Bear Resources? When can we expect a response, and what determines success?
One of the principal questions that I get asked is, how much gold is there on your property? And of course, we'd like to figure that out as well. And that also goes very nicely into the second part of your question: is when will this be revealed? Well, this is an ongoing 90,000 meter currently exploration program, and we're funded for way beyond that in terms of number of meters that we can drill. So I would expect that the market and shareholders will understand over time just how big this system is. And I believe as the limits of the gold mineralization are sought and hopefully eventually found, we will then see commensurate value come in with the story, much as it has been doing. So the value proposition for investors here is to be part of the discovery process on a project that looks like it has the potential to be much bigger than the majority of prospects like this that have been seen in the last number of years.
Chris, what keeps you up at night that we don't know about?
Well, a number of years ago, I was in the same boat as everybody else that had a dream and a vision for growing a company like this through the discovery process. That was always about finding enough money to keep that drill rig turning. We've been very successful on that front in the sense that, we recently completed a bought deal placement that was doubly oversubscribed. So we ended up raising twice as much money at a higher price than we had originally sought. And we're currently so well funded that we don't need to go back to the market for a long time. Right now, what keeps me up is no longer those sort of mundane concerns that are typical of the industry. Right now, my main concern is that we don't make it through enough exploration until we get an offer that's too good to be refused from a large mining company, and we end up having to hand over the project at too early of a stage. Fortunately for us, because we're independent in terms of our shareholder base and very well funded, I can't see that will happen before we have significant room to grow from this point, and that's what I really look forward to.
Great Bear Resources can stand on the merits of its own work, but to coincide with that, you have the catalyst of also having a resurging gold price, a 6-year high. Does that change anything for you at all?
I would suggest that the increased gold prices probably liven up the space in terms of potential M&A activity. There's always interest on the M&A side, but the ability to consummate deals, if you listen to large mining companies, they'll often tell you that they want to buy assets at the bottom of the market. But if you look at when they actually do buy assets, it's when you have a bit of a bull market scenario going on. So for us, the high gold prices, it means that, in Canadian dollar terms, gold is now at record levels that have never been seen before. And that means that gold projects in Canada have potential profitability far beyond what they would have had even just a few years ago. And that means that Canada and Red Lake jurisdictions like ours that are easy to access and have existing mining infrastructure, these are premier destinations for large companies to go and seek major discoveries. And we think that we're on top of one of those. So there are no downsides for us with the rising gold price, but the kind of mineralization that we're seeing, whether gold prices are higher or even quite a bit lower, these should be, I would anticipate that these would have robust economics going forward. If you look at comparable deposits in the area, they're quite profitable, even well below, $1,200 an ounce gold, $1,100 an ounce gold. So with the kind of environment that you're looking at now, it's nothing but good news for companies that are in our situation.
Mr. Taylor, last question. What did I forget to ask?
I guess, maybe you forgot to ask what gets me out of bed in the morning, and I think that's an easy one to answer. I mean, I really, to be on top of a discovery process like this in Great Bear, every morning is a little bit like Christmas. I get updates, and the drill rig has gone into a new area, and it's found gold here and it's found gold there. But one of the things that I really enjoy, that really drives me, is just benefiting our shareholder base. These are people, and if you think about it, when we were a tiny little company just 2 years ago with a sub $5 million market cap, people were taking money and giving it to us to go drill based on our vision of what this project could be. I love to be able to reward shareholders for their trust. Whether you came in at 50 cents or $5 or $10, ultimately, whatever it's going to be, I'll do my very best, because I'm a big shareholder and I understand that the faith you put in us, you want to see returns on that investment. That's why I'm very focused on limiting dilution in the company, keeping the share structure tight, and making sure that the money that we raise turns into money that comes that's applied in the ground so that we can find more gold. So that's what drives me. I love talking about it. I love talking to shareholders. I work for shareholders, and I'm always happy to talk to them. So I guess that's maybe the one thing that you forgot to ask me.
Well, one of the questions I always receive is, Maurice, do you think that the stock is going to melt up, referring to Great Bear Resources? I'm like, you're witnessing the beginning of it. And I want to stress the beginning. I think this is just the beginning stages for you. The stars are aligning, and if you are considering becoming a shareholder, what's the website address that someone should go to, sir?
Have a look at www.greatbearresources.ca. That's our website. Have a look at that. You can look at all the technical information. We're very transparent in terms of disclosure, so you should be able to find all the maps and drill sections and 3D models and descriptions of where every hole has been. And keep in mind, we don't hide drill holes. Often when you read releases from companies, they give you highlighted drill holes in the release, and everything else is undisclosed. With Great Bear, we disclose everything all the time. So,
I find that hard to believe. So they would hide the bad results, huh?
Well, they say for remaining results, go to the website. Well,
right.
You can do that with us, but the results have already been disclosed in a news release. So, we're very transparent that way, and I think that sets us apart from other people as well. So please go check out our website, www.greatbearresources.ca, and have a look at the technical information there. Hopefully that will give you something to be interested in.
For direct inquiries, call 604-646-8355. 8354. That number again is 604-646-8354. Or you may email info@greatbearresources.ca. Great Bear Resources trades on the TSX.V, symbol GBR, and on the OTCQB, symbol GTBDF. Before you make your next bullion purchase, make sure you call me. I'm a licensed representative for Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments, where we provide a number of options to expand your precious metals portfolio, from physical delivery, offshore depositories, precious metal IRAs, and private blockchain distributed ledger technology. Call me directly at 855-505-1900. That number again is 855-505-1900. Or you may email Maurice@milesfranklin.com. Finally, please subscribe to Proven and Probable.com for mining insights and bullion sales. Chris Taylor of Great Bear Resources, thank you for joining us today on Proven and Probable.
Thanks.
The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.